co-host Mark Elcombe, who is the hospitality manager at Sonoma-Cutrer. So, Mark, please take it away. Tell us a little bit about yourself, give an intro, your history in the industry, and what you do for the winery.
Sure. Well, first of all, it's great to be here with you, Katie, and everybody else that's watching today. As Katie said, my name is Mark Elcombe, and I am the hospitality manager here at Sonoma-Cutrer Vineyards. I've been with Sonoma-Cutrer for almost 14 years. So I came to the winery in 2010 to actually help open the very first tasting room to the public. So prior to 2010, you couldn't come and do a tasting. We didn't have a wine club. We didn't have all the things that we have now. And so it's been a great experience to be a part of the team to sort of build the tasting room and all the experiences that we do here at Sonoma-Cutrer. My background before that was in a completely different industry. So it's really, I don't want to talk about that because it'll probably bore people to death. But I really, at that point in my life, wanted to get into the wine industry. And I really had to figure out how to do that. And so I actually went back to school. I went back to Santa Rosa Junior College and their wine studies program. I took virtually every class they had in, hospitality and wine judging and all the different aspects of the wine industry. And it was really through that process that hospitality caught my attention, because I figured this is the fun part of the wine industry. When people come out to Sonoma County, they come out to the winery, they're on vacation, they're having a great time. And I thought, what a great thing to do, to be a part of that and help that experience. And so that's when I really decided to become a part of that. And then just very fortunate to be able to land at Sonoma-Cutrer and be here for this whole period of time.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I saw your bio, you have done plenty of wine judging. So you're no stranger to being able to tell a quality wine.
Well, yeah, I have. I judge every year at the San Francisco Chronicle wine competition, which is currently the largest competition in the United States. It's the judging. We do that in January up in a little town called Cloverdale, which is in the very northern part of Sonoma County. But then they do a big public tasting down in San Francisco, and it's sponsored by the San Francisco Chronicle. So I get to do that one every year because January is very quiet at the winery. So I have the time to be able to participate in that. And then different competitions I'll judge from time to time, depending on how my schedule fits to be able to do that. But it's a lot of fun. And for me, the most exciting part of judging wine is really being with the other judges, to learn from them, to hear how they approach wine, how they approach, evaluating wine, and then really being able to taste, hundreds and thousands of wines. It's just a lot of fun.
Well, that's awesome. I know you recently came back from a trip too where you got to taste wine, but not California. Can you tell us about that trip and how it kind of correlates with Sonoma-Cutrer Winery?
I'd be happy to. My wife and I just spent 2 weeks in France, and part of the reason that we went, is kind of a bucket list trip for me, is that Sonoma-Cutrer, from our history, we talk about our Grand Cru philosophy, which is a way that you grow the fruit in the vineyards, and then once you harvest that fruit, how you apply Grand Cru philosophy in your winemaking. And it's really designed to get the most consistent, highest quality wines you can each and every year. And that philosophy comes from Burgundy, France. And specifically two areas in Burgundy, Côte de Beaune and Côte de Nuit. And so we were fortunate to be able to spend about 5 days in that region and be able to visit our barrel cooper, who makes our barrels in that area for us, to be able to visit some of the wineries that we have worked with over the years to make sure that we're being consistent and true to that Grand Cru philosophy. And then one of the highlights was to visit a vineyard in Cote de Nuit called Romani-Conti, which
Oh,
is considered probably the best vineyard in the entire world. And to be able to drive up and to walk up and to see it and to sort of, it was almost like meeting a huge celebrity.
yeah.
And it was really one of the highlights of the trip. And I found out that the average bottle of Romani Conti, I think, goes for about $27,000 a bottle. So it's a pretty special wine.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible. And it's so hard to get too. So hard to get your paws on it. I know here stateside at least. That's incredible. I didn't know you went there. That's
Yep,
awesome. Very cool. Well, we can go ahead and get ready to walk through our tasting here. We have three expressions from Sonoma-Cutrer to taste. First, we're going to taste the 100% Pinot Noir Rosé Pinot Noir from Russian River Valley. That is here. Following that, we will be tasting the Sonoma Coast Chardonnay. And then lastly, the Russian River Valley Pinot Noir. So those are three wines we're going to be tasting. So we can go ahead and pour our rosé. And while we're doing that, would you mind telling us just a little bit more about the winery, maybe some history of Sonoma-Cutrer?
absolutely. So Sonoma-Cutrer was founded. It was Sonoma-Cutrer Vineyards. So we were founded as a vineyard company back in 1973. And we own 6 estate vineyards. So those are the vineyards that we own, and 5 of those are in the Russian River Valley, where I am today, and one of them is in the Sonoma Coast appellation. So, and back in 1973, all we did was grow Chardonnay, and we sold that fruit to other wineries and winemakers. But we didn't actually make a bottle of Sonoma-Cutrer Chardonnay until 1981. And when we decided to make Sonoma-Cutrer Chardonnay in 1981, the only place that you could buy it was in a restaurant on a wine list. So it was a very focused business model. And the reason why we decided to only offer our wines in restaurants is because of that Grand Cru philosophy of making wines in a classic French style. And for people that love wine, it's really the wine food pairing that is what's magical, at least to me, in the wine world. And about 85% of all wine that's consumed in France will have a food component with it. So they look at wine more as a food component than a beverage like we might in the United States. And so it was really that philosophy that made sense for us to offer it only where there was food available. And so that's really how we started. And then it was in 2002 that we began to produce Pinot Noir, also fruit from our estate vineyards in the Russian River Valley, and then the rosé of Pinot Noir, which we're going to talk about today. I think we started making that about 5 or 6 years ago, and so we've sort of grown the family. But it's all both Chardonnay and Pinot Noir are both those Burgundian grapes, and so that's really what we focus on here at Sonoma-Cutrer. And then just really quickly, I think a lot of people, because you might have people from all over that are watching us right now. Sonoma-Cutrer is located in Sonoma County, California, which is about 1 hour, 60 miles north of San Francisco, California. We're located in the really the heart, the middle of the Russian River Valley, which is probably the most famous growing region in potentially the United States. And the winery is located maybe about 20 miles from the Pacific Ocean. So we're in this beautiful location just north of San Francisco. So anybody who happens to be in the area, come on by and see us. We'd love to have you come and see us at the winery.
Yeah, we know a hospitality guy out there, right?
Absolutely. What it's all about.
All right, well, I'm getting thirsty over here. Do you have your rosé ready?
I do.
Okay, awesome. So what we are tasting is the 2022 vintage But like you mentioned earlier, that Burgundian Grand Cru style of keeping it consistent year after year, whether you're tasting the 2022 or a different vintage, and this applies to all three of these wines today, you can kind of count on that consistency and having a very equal playing field in terms of the profile that you're going after. So if you're at a party or you open a bottle and taste a certain vintage, whether it be the Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, or Rosé, and you love it, you can count on still loving it a couple of years, a couple of different vintages later. Of course, there's little nuances from vintage to vintage that make tiny little changes, but overall, it's going to have those same qualities that you enjoyed from the vintage prior. So in 2022, tell us about this growing season and how it impacted the rosé.
Well, every year is a completely different growing season. There's a different story to it. And so 2022, when we look back to coming out of the 2021 harvest, we had a lot of rain early in the winter. And then right after the first of the year, all the rain stopped. And we had, I think, the driest first quarter of the year ever. So it was part of this multi-year drought that California had been going through, which this year we officially came out of, at least for the time being. But that drought actually creates really great conditions for grapes because we don't want too much water. We don't want to have that during the growing season because we like the fruit to really be full of all the flavor components and the acids and the sugars and enough water and liquid to get them where they need to be. But we don't want to plump them up too much. And so 2022 was really sort of this perfect year that came together, and so it was pretty magical in that regard. We had uh, we have two vineyards that we own that are our state vineyards, our Owsley Vineyard and our Vine Hill Vineyard. Of the six estate vineyards that we own, we only grow Pinot Noir at those two vineyards, and that's because those are in the right place in the Russian River Valley to get the highest quality fruit, the most consistent quality Pinot Noir year after year. And so this is where the fruit for this rosé comes from. And so what's I think unique about our rosé, and I'll get into the flavor components in just a second here, but what's really unique about our rosés is that many rosés that are offered in the market are really start out, they're going to be a red wine, whatever that varietal is. And the winery will take some of that juice very early in the red wine making process and what they call bleed it off. And they take it off the skins very soon so that you only get that little bit of color from the skins into the juice. And then they make a rosé out of it. And that's perfectly fine. That's what most people do. In our case, our rosé is literally um, the blocks that we are going to be using to grow the fruit, to pick the fruit, to make our rosé are actually predetermined before the growing season. So everything we do during the growing season is knowing that that fruit is going to be for a rosé. It's not going to be just bleed off from our regular Pinot Noir harvest. So we prune the vines earlier. We manage the canopies of the fruit earlier. We actually pick that fruit earlier than our regular Pinot Noir so that it has more crispness and more acidity in the fruit. And so it's a very dedicated program. And then as we pick each of the batches from these designated blocks and bring them into the winery, we then keep those separate from each other. And so as we begin the winemaking process, we're now not just taking one run of juice and making rosé. We're literally creating multiple rosés, which then we blend together to get exactly the right expression and characteristics that we want each year.
That's amazing. Yeah, and I don't know. I don't think there's a ton of wineries doing it that way. To your point, I think that in California specifically, a lot of the rosés and Pinot Noir you find out there are just leftover, so they can say that they made a rosé and it's just their Pinot Noir. But you guys are being so intentional with it and really making the best rosé you can. And I think I can personally tell a difference when I taste it. I love this rosé. So tell us what we're smelling, what we're tasting with this rosé, and how you would like to pair this with food.
Well, I think the first thing about rosé is, it's a blush. It's a lighter wine. And so I think people tend to think, well, it's not going to be as robust and intense as, a red wine. And that's kind of I would say, well, I wouldn't agree with that on our rosé. Our rosé is going to have a lot of great intense aromas in the nose. And when I think about, the rosé, the 2022, I get a lot of tangerine in the nose with strawberry sort of tropical overtones, raspberry. Sometimes I pick up a little bit of that watermelon that you get on the 4th of July as you cut the watermelon open and you smell it and you start to taste it. And so it's just got just very fresh fruit red berry in it as well. And so it's intense, it's well balanced, and it's got a really nice long sort of crisp tangy finish to it. So it's just a great expression of rosé in general, and certainly rosé of Pinot Noir. Now, what I would pair this with, we are coming into the holiday season, and specifically we're coming into Thanksgiving. This rosé would just be awesome with turkey. I mean, just when you think about the type of wines, I mean, I would probably drink all three of these wines we're talking about today with turkey. But when we think about turkey and we think about gravy and we think about all the different aspects that you might have at your Thanksgiving table, this really, really would pair well with turkey. In addition to that, I love personally having this with salmon. So this is, a lot of rosés would not be big enough to stand up to a salmon. This is perfect to pair with the salmon. So those would be two dishes that I would pair this rosé with.
Awesome. Yeah, I could definitely see that. And to your point, it has more substance to it to stick up and pair well with food. Whereas a lot of rosés on the market are a little bit closer to water than they are to wine. Not so much a porch pounder where you have to be like in the sun, no food. This is definitely a partner to food, and has the complexity to and body to stand up with food. So I could definitely see this pairing really well with those items at Thanksgiving.
Yeah, this is one of those wines where you open a bottle and then you go back to drink more of the wine and it's gone, and you're like, what? Why? It's like because it's so easy to drink and it's so beautiful. And I have to tell you that we find that it is one of the most popular wines we have in the tasting room year in and year out. And the reality is most people know Sonoma-Cutrer because of our Chardonnays,
Mhm.
but if you do love our Chardonnays and you have experience with our Chardonnays, as you look at something like our rosé of Pinot Noir and also our Pinot Noir, the same effort, the same quality, the same attention to detail goes into those wines as well. So I think anybody who would be like going, should I try this rosé? I think you'd be well rewarded to give it a try, and I think that you'll like it.
Yes, absolutely. I can get like a little bit of rose in there too.
Yes, I think so. Like sort of a little bit of rose petal that
Hmm.
get in
It,
there.
the wine itself is just such a pretty salmon color too. I mean, that's a very. I know I'm not in front of anything white, but it's just such a very beautiful color, rosé.
Yeah. And I won't go into all the awards that it wins, and it wins a lot. But what caught my attention was the very first competition this year, which was back in January, right? Actually Dan Berger's international wine competition, and he's the wine writer for the Los Angeles Times, or he was. I don't know if he still is. But it first competition we entered, it got best of class, and so that's always like, wow, this might be another great vintage. So I think it's proven to hold up this year very well.
Awesome. Well, that's incredible. I'm excited to see what 2023 brings.
Me too.
All right, let's switch gears over to the Chardonnay, arguably one of the most famous Chardonnays and most award winning Chardonnays of all time. This is the Sonoma Coast Chardonnay. All of these wines are available on reservebar.com, of course. If you guys are watching us live on the reservebar.com website, these links here are actually clickable. If not, you can go ahead and go to our website and shop there. All right, Sonoma-Cutrer Chardonnay, here we go.
Well, I am really excited to be talking about not only Sonoma Coast, that this Chardonnay, but this specific Chardonnay from 2021. Starting a little bit with with the harvest that we had. Again, we were in the middle of that multi-year drought, which is horrible for our grass, and it makes us really have to think twice about how we utilize our water. But for the fruit, it really produces some great high quality fruit. And 2021 was really another example of that. It was a very kind of what I call uneventful year in the sense that not a lot of crazy things happened with weather extremes, and so that's always a good thing. Our vineyard teams and our winemaking team kind of like that predictability. But Sonoma Coast is really an amazing wine, and this wine is spectacular. And I can say that. I'm supposed to say that, right? I work for Sonoma-Cutrer. But there have been 6 wine competitions we have entered this wine in this year, the Sonoma Coast, that has won double gold or higher awards. And for people that are watching, a double gold is a unanimous gold medal from the judging panel. So when you have 6 different competitions with 6 different judging panels, and you get 6 unanimous double gold awards, that's a pretty high level to attain. And that's what this 2021 did. So that's sort of my third party affirmation of what a great wine it is. Sonoma Coast is a wine that has fruit from all of our estate vineyards in it. So it's a multi vineyard blend that we make every year. So it really gives us the ability to say, well, this is what we want Sonoma-Cutrer, Sonoma Coast to taste like, and we're able to do that each and every year. So for those that are looking at the wine or tasting with us today, when you smell the wine, you're going to get, for me, I get a lot of peach, I get a lot of pear, and apple. And when I say apple, I'm not talking about like a green apple or a red apple, specifically like a golden delicious apple. So it's really nice, ripe, juicy, sort of fruit forward nose to it. It's also got, from the barrels, we talked a little bit about the barrels coming from Burgundy, right? Very important part of the wine. And in our case, we want the barrels to be a big contributor to the wine, but we don't want our wines to be oaky or overbearing in terms of what the barrel gives them. But in this case, you get spice, what I call baking spice from the barrel. So we talk about vanilla, and we talk about cinnamon, maybe a little bit of nutmeg. And these are sort of the spices that come through in the nose of the Sonoma Coast Chardonnay. And always being fruit forward, but then having that sort of crisp, vibrant acidity, which is sort of the classic French style for Chardonnay, and certainly a consistent style for Sonoma-Cutrer Chardonnays. And people that have been enjoying our Chardonnays really for for over 40 years now. That's why they love it. I get a lot of people that say, I don't like Chardonnay, but I love your Chardonnay. And that just tells me that they really like sort of a classic style. And this 2021 is spot on for that, and really consistent with the Chardonnays that my wife Kathy and I were trying over in Burgundy, which was very exciting to see the consistency between those wines and then a wine like the Sonoma Coast Chardonnay that we're producing.
It's absolutely delicious. And when you hear people say like a Burgundian style, it still does have that oak influence. This is my favorite style of Chardonnay. You still get the vanilla, you still get the baking spice, which you wouldn't get if you were using stainless steel, but it doesn't have too much, and it does have that acidity. Whereas a lot of specifically California Chardonnays that are using oak are missing the acidity, or they're using too much oak, and it comes out just kind of a little too oaky, a little flabby, a little too much of like an oily mouthfeel. This is like the most perfect style. This is the Burgundian style. So if you guys, anyone in the audience that has been confused if they've ever heard that phrase used, this is what he means. It is that style that is taken from Burgundy, where they use oak just to add the perfect hint of baking spice and vanilla to the wine. And this is just textbook amazing.
And when we talk about pairings, I would pair this simple. Get a little Dungeness crab, get a little bowl of butter, get a glass of Sonoma-Cutrer Chardonnay, and then just leave me alone and let me go. And that would be a perfect pairing. But it would also pair well with something like a fettuccine Alfredo, where the richness and the creamy fullness of the Chardonnay would really pair well with a sort of a rich, Alfredo sauce or a butter sauce or something of that nature. So just a lovely Chardonnay. And I
Yes.
hope.
And thinking of Thanksgiving, I kind of picture this with like the buttered rolls at Thanksgiving, or like this, depending on how you make your stuffing, this would be phenomenal with stuffing.
Yep, yep. I agree with you 100%. And again, turkey and gravy. Fettuccine Alfredo, anything with that richness, that creaminess, this would be a perfect pairing for that as well.
Yeah, amazing Chardonnay. No stranger to winning lots of awards, vintage after vintage, for a reason. All right, and our last is the Russian River Pinot Noir, and we are pouring the 2020 today. So, COVID year. Not so great for everyone, but how was it for wine?
Wow. Yeah. Well, yeah, it was 2020, COVID. Yeah. Everybody loves. And it's funny how our lives are. We now break it into pre-COVID,
Yeah.
post-COVID stories, right? There's sort of that line there. But we don't really want to talk about 2020 or 2021. The funny thing about, like I said, every growing season has a unique story to it. Well, 2020 was certainly that. So, from a growing perspective, it was really a very good growing year. From of an ability to get out into the vineyards and to keep our workforce safe, there were a lot of things that we had to do, but we were able to pull that off. And then, we were rewarded with a really beautiful harvest and also with some tremendous fruit to make Pinot Noir. Um, like the rosé we tried a bit earlier, the rosé of Pinot Noir, the fruit for the Russian River Valley Pinot Noir also comes from our Owsley vineyard and our Vine Hill vineyard. So probably about 50-50. I think it's a bit more from our Owsley vineyard. And what makes those vineyards really special, especially for Pinot Noir, is the weather. The weather that we get in the Russian River Valley, it's what we call a diurnal weather pattern, where we got cool, foggy mornings and hot, dry afternoons. And so Owsley, that vineyard, which is located in the southern part of the county, that gets a lot more fog. It's a cooler climate vineyard. So the grapes get a lot of hang time. They develop a lot of black fruit qualities, a lot of beautiful, intense aromatics. And that's where when we smell this wine, we get a lot of the nose from. And then the body and the finish of this wine are really representative of our Vine Hill vineyard, which is in a different location in the county. It gets a little bit more heat, less of the fog, and so we get a lot of that structure and the tannins and the big finish come from Vine Hill. When you put them together, you get sort of the best of both of those vineyards in a really balanced, integrated way. And so it just really makes it an exciting, really, really classic Russian River Valley style Pinot Noir. And what I mean by that is you're going to get a lot of blackberry in the nose, very fruit forward, a lot of cherry, you'll get cola. You're not going to get a lot of, it's not going to be highly, well, how do I want to say this? Light and elegant. It's going to be very robust and have a lot of structure to it. You're going to get some of that vanilla spice that comes from our barrel program. It's in French oak, about 11 months, about a third new oak, a third 1-year-old oak, and a third 2-year-old oak. All those baking spices. And then you got some nice silky tannins that give it some great structure. And so for me, this represents the classic style of Russian River Valley Pinot Noir. I'll say cheers on that. For a pairing with this, Again, I'll go with turkey, but this is one where duck, it'll go really well with a duck dish. Some people do duck for the holidays. Do not hesitate pairing this with a duck dish of any type. It'll go great with a ham. It'll go great with pork, especially like baby back ribs, which I love to pair it with. And then of course salmon. So those are kind of classic pairings. And this Pinot Noir is versatile enough. It'll pair with all of those dishes.
Yeah, I think especially Chardonnay and Pinot Noir in this Burgundian style, the entire Thanksgiving table really pairs with both of these wines. You can't go wrong. This is like the holiday for Chardonnay and Pinot Noir from Russian River.
Yep, absolutely. And the other thing about the fruit for the Pinot Noir, all hand picked, all sort of destemmed but not crushed, all very small lot fermentation, cold soaks, all the things that we talk about when we talk about boutique or artisanal winemaking processes, which create the best noirs. We actually do all that here with our Pinot Noir at Sonoma-Cutrer. So it's a completely different facility. It's a completely different team that's actually making the Pinot Noir from the Chardonnay, because it really demands that, because they're different grapes and they need different things to come out to the best quality they can.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I know I wanted to bring this up earlier. I've heard that you guys are like industry leading with your sustainability. When did you guys start the sustainability efforts and what are you doing at the winery?
We've been working on sustainability for, well, before I came here. And so for sustainability, that's become kind of a buzzword in the industry. And
Hmm.
for us, it's not a buzzword. It's actually in our DNA. It means that you strive to have zero waste. It means that you try to reuse or repurpose everything you touch. It means that when we talk about using our water, we try to use our water 2 to 3 times so that we can use less water in our process. And so the Sonoma County Wine Growers Association there's over 500 wineries in Sonoma County, and they have an award every year. It's the Sustainable Producer of the Year, and we were given that award in 2022. And we're extremely proud of that, because there are a lot of things you have to do to be sustainable, but then you have to actually show that you're doing continuous improvement in all of those areas to be able to win that award. And so it's something that you come to the winery and visit us, you'll see the plaque in the taste room. I'll be happy to show you that. And both our vineyard and our winery are certified sustainable each and every year. And you have to renew that each year.
Well, that's awesome. Congratulations on the award.
Thank
And thank you for all the efforts. I know it's not easy. Definitely no shortcuts there, but better for the environment and for everything. So that's incredible.
Well,
Maybe even better.
it's part of Sonoma-Cutrer, and really who we are as a winery. And I think it's why over the last 43 years of producing wine, we've had the kind of success we have, because we don't cut corners, we don't take the easy path. We do all the little extra steps and attention to detail that you need to do, and that's very difficult to sustain that over 4 decades. And it's a real sense of pride for me to be a part of that here at Sonoma-Cutrer.
Well, the quality is, for as much wine as you guys make, the quality is definitely not compromised. And you could taste the love in every bottle. That's for sure. So, everyone, if you haven't tasted any of these wines yet, definitely order some, taste, come back to this video and taste through them with us. Um, can you tell us before we leave what's going on at the winery right now? Have you finished harvest? Is there anything still hanging?
Yeah, no, we finished harvest. It was a crazy year, Katie. It was the latest harvest, start to harvest, that we have ever had at Sonoma-Cutrer. We have employees that have been here for 40 years, and they said it started on September 28th. Typically, we start harvest like mid to late August, but it was just a really cool year. The benefit of that is that the fruit had this incredible hang time on the vines. So the yields were really good. The quality of the fruit looks really great. It just meant that what we typically take about 60 days to do, we had to compress and pick all the fruit in 30 days. So our vineyard teams and our winemaking teams were here 7 days a week, 2 shifts a day, getting all that fruit in. It was really remarkable to see that effort. But I'd say everybody, you want to put a little asterisk on 2023, and maybe in a couple of years we look back and we see if, because we think it's going to be a great year. So we look back and say, is it as, will it turn out to be as great a year as we hope it will be based on how harvest was this year? So yeah, another crazy year for harvest.
Well, I'll definitely make note of that, a mental note, and make sure that I'm tasting all the 2023 vintage expressions of Sonoma-Cutrer when they come out a few years down the road. Very exciting. Well, before we say goodbye, is there anything else that you wanted to mention about the winery?
I think just invite people to come out and visit us. If you're coming out to Sonoma County, Sonoma-Cutrer.com, you can plan your visit there. If you ever wanted to play croquet on world-class courts, we're the only winery in the world that has croquet lawns right in front of our tasting room. They're spectacular, and you can actually reserve them and play croquet while you're visiting us, enjoying our wines. And that's a really unique wine country experience that we're having to turn people away. It's becoming so popular. So yeah, why not, right?
That's amazing. Okay, I need to plan a trip to California. That sounds very fun.
I will personally host you, Katie. You let me
Okay,
know want to come out.
I'll take you up on that. Well, it's been a pleasure, Mark. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. Make sure you stock up on your Sonoma-Cutrer wines before the holidays. This is the best wine to have at Thanksgiving if you're hosting, or to bring to the host if you're the guest. So thank you again, Mark, and thanks everyone for joining us.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.